Hello, third grade. Today we're going to be practicing with our IXL standards. Remember, we're going to be continuing with reading fantasy, and fantasy is something that cannot happen in real life. So we're going to go through two examples just from our IXL homework just to talk through it. So since we are reading and answering questions, make sure to take your time as you're doing your homework. Since it is reading stories, it will take a little longer, but that's okay because we are learning. So let's get started. The noisy dragon. So we know dragons aren't real, so we already know that this could not happen in real life. That's how we know it's a fantasy. So the sun was just rising when Petunia, the village baker, heard the awful sound. "There goes that dragon in the hills again," she grumbled. "Good thing I can sleep through any noise." But she knew the other villagers would be angry. All week, the dragon's loud screams had kept all of them from getting enough sleep. With a sigh, Petunia put down the pan full of unbaked buns and went to make a fire for her oven. At least the villagers will have freshly baked buns, she thought. But when Petunia looked in the wood box, there were no logs. There were just a few twigs left. She groaned. Only now did she remember that the village woodcutter hadn't done his job yesterday. So now we have to think, what was the village woodcutter probably supposed to do for Petunia? Was it plant a tree near her bakery, bring logs for her wood box, find the noisy dragon, bake buns for the village? So, as we look back and see, she looked in her wood box and there were no logs. That's where her first problem came. And then it says that's how the village woodcutter hadn't done his job yesterday. She's making the buns because she's the baker, so it wouldn't be this one. And it has nothing to do with the dragon or planting a tree. She needed logs for her wood box because that's when she ran into the problem and realized the woodcutter hadn't done his job. So now we have to read the second part. A little later, the woodcutter and his son came into Petunia's bakery. "Good morning," the woodcutter said, yawning loudly. "That noisy dragon kept me awake most of last night again. I need a fresh bun to give me the strength to chop wood." So the woodcutter didn't do his job because the dragon kept him up all night, and now he needs baked goods from the village baker. But she doesn't have any fresh baked goods because she didn't have wood to bake the buns. "I didn't get any sleep," said the son. "I'm much too tired to gather twigs for starting fires. I would like 2 buns, please." Remember, she has no buns to give them. "I couldn't bake the buns because there was no wood to make a fire," Petunia exclaimed. "Oh, that's bad news," the woodcutter declared, his eyes blinking sleepily. "Yes, that's terrible news," his son nodded. Then they fell fast asleep, snoring on Petunia's floor. Someone needs to tell the dragon to be quiet, Petunia thought. She left her bakery to look for a villager who could talk to the dragon. But everyone she found was too sleepy to leave the village. So now, based on the story, which is most likely to happen next? So now we have to think and decide. They're not telling us, but we have to use our inferences to see what do we think is most likely to happen next. Petunia will go herself to tell the dragon to stop making noise. Petunia will chop her own logs for the oven fire. The woodcutter and his son will head out to find the dragon. The woodcutter's son will offer to bake the buns for Petunia. So I think what's going to happen next is she's going to go out to tell the dragon to stop making noise. Because we see here, she says someone needs to tell the dragon to be quiet, Petunia thought. But everyone else was too sleepy to leave the village. She was the only one that was still awake. So I'm going to go with this one. All right, and now we have our third part of the story. We're going to have 4 parts to read. Petunia put her hands on her hips. Someone needs to tell that dragon to be quiet or leave our hills. I guess, since I'm the only one who's wide awake, that someone is me, she said. Then she imagined the dragon's huge mouth with fiery breath pouring out. Her legs felt like jelly, but she could not waste time worrying. Who knew when the dragon would start roaring again? Petunia lifted her chin and started walking. It took all day to reach the dragon's cave. The land around the cave was dark and bare except for some twisted trees. And now the dragon's groans were so loud, Petunia had to cover her ears. "Show yourself, dragon," she called. There was a terrible, roaring groan. Petunia trembled as the dragon appeared. She was just about to flee when she noticed a tear sliding down his face. How does Petunia probably feel about talking to the dragon? Well, she is scared but knows she must do the right thing for the village. She is excited to be the hero who saves her village from the dragon. She is worried about hurting the dragon's feelings by telling him to leave. She is sure that it will be easy to get the dragon to stop roaring. So now let's think. She goes back. So here she says she's imagining the huge mouth with fiery breath pouring out. Her legs felt like jelly. Sometimes when we get nervous or scared, our legs kind of feel jellyish. And she's also thinking about the fiery breath pouring out. So it's here it says she was worrying. Who knew when the dragon would start roaring again? So it seems like she was worried and probably a little scared because that dragon has mouth of fire. So I would say she's scared, but she knows she must do the right thing for her village. She doesn't really know that the dragon is crying at first, so she's not too scared about hurting his feelings. And she doesn't know the dragon. She never says it will be easy. And she never says that she's excited to be a hero. So I'm going to go with she is scared. She must do the right thing for her village. All right, and now we have our last part of the story. So I know this video is a little long, so we'll go a little faster. And we're just going to do one today. So here we go. "There's a thorn stuck in my foot," the dragon cried. "So that's why you've been groaning," Petunia said. "Let me see." Petunia lifted her chin and started walking. Moaning with pain, the dragon held out his foot. "Hold still," said Petunia, and she plucked the thorn out. Then she pulled a clean rag from her apron pocket and wrapped up the sore foot. "Ah," said the dragon, "that's much better. Thank you." And then in his excitement, he breathed a little fire. "How can I ever repay you?" Said Petunia, looking at the flame. "I might know a way." The villagers were surprised when Petunia returned to the village with the dragon. But then Petunia explained what happened. The woodcutter yawned and grinned. "Well, I guess having a quiet dragon around wouldn't be so bad." From then on, the villagers slept well every night. As for the dragon, he stayed around, and he and Petunia became very good friends. So let's look at the picture. How does the dragon repay Petunia? So it looks like the dragon's taking his fire breath and starting a fire for the buns. So he uses his fire to help Petunia bake the buns. He frightens the woodcutter into helping Petunia again. He roars at villagers until they wake up. He cuts logs and gathers twigs so Petunia can make a fire. Well, he made the fire for Petunia, so it would be the first one. So as we're going through our fantasy with illustrations, make sure to take your time reading, talk through each one. I know today's a little longer video, but I just wanted to make sure that we could go through an example together. All right, have fun and make sure to take your time. Bye, third grade.